We're back. This is Renovate and Build with Jim and Sandra, powered by Fair Trade Works.
On creating a brand new invention. A triumph. That is my intention.
Good morning. We're talking construction this morning here on Renovate and Build. Thanks for tuning in.
Good morning, everybody, and hope you're enjoying your weekend.
Jim, I'm so excited about our next guest, as you can tell by my song selection there, because I've been fascinated about how things are invented. Since I've been little, I've been fascinated by this. I mean, it's part of the reason I loved your business model at Fair Trade Works when I met you. It's the idea that people can actually use their creativity to think outside the box and then break the cycle of what people have been doing for hundreds or maybe thousands of years in the case of tools.
Yeah, Andrew Dewberry has been nominated for an Innovators Award, an Innovators at Work Award, that it wants to honour Canadians who turn business ideas into action. He's on the phone now to share how he came up with some of his very popular inventions for the construction industry, such as his Cork Right tool.
Good morning and welcome to Renovate and Build, Andrew.
Hello, Sandra. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you, and congratulations on your nomination.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Can you share with us how you got started as an inventor? Was this something you had an aptitude for as a child?
Well, I think so. I think I'm sure that inventors can be made, but mostly I think we're born. It's unfortunate, but I think it's the case. It's something that I've always dreamt of. You know, when I've not been sleeping at night or whatever, I would always come up with a new idea, just something that was childishly silly at first. But then through training, I learned how to bring creative ideas forward, and eventually I moved into inventing it's just a natural route forward. Once I'd got something that I felt that could be brought to market very easily.
That's great. Andrew, I'm curious what your first invention was.
What my first... I don't really know how to describe my first invention. I suppose there was one time when I was having friends around to play at home, and stupidly I said, well, I'll make something for you, and it'll be something we can play with and something we can eat. And then I thought, well, why did I say that? Number one. And B, what on earth can that be? Eventually I ended up, much to my mother's chagrin, making round chocolate balls. I thought, that's got it. So, that might have been the first one. And nowadays, of course, you can get round chocolate balls back in the candy shop. So it was interesting that that's the only answer I could come up with, but I have no idea why I said it in the first place.
That's hilarious.
Now, as an adult, do you get your ideas in your head as flashes, or do they come out of practicality?
A little bit of both. Mainly, I see things which don't seem right, and I can't really put anything else other than to say that. It just doesn't seem right the way things are done in some respects. And so I just look at it for a short while, and very often it just kind of flashes to me that this is what you need to do. Other times it's really hard work. You know there's got to be an answer, and there's many different potential ways of doing it, and you just have to go through every single route, and eventually you come down to the best one.
So you have to be patient as an inventor, is what you're telling me.
Well, you do. The one I'm working on now, which actually split into two about 5 months ago, I realised I was having difficulty because there was two inventions sitting together. It's taken me nearly 2.5 years already. So obviously that's whilst I'm doing lots of other things, but it takes a long time.
Yeah, I'm sure there's lots of kind of frustration leaving and come back to the drawing board and just until it clicks right.
That's right. And sometimes you literally have to walk away for weeks because you've got to a point at which you can't see a route forward. And you just have to be patient and just have faith that your brain is going to kick in and something is going to happen.
When you were younger, were you more impatient, where it just drive you crazy? And is that kind of a skill set you've kind of learnt over time, just to be patient and let it come, or like...
I think I've always been quite patient. I think that's one of the things you have to be to do this. I mean, I know there's this image of the mad inventor kind of with hair flying all over the place, just rushing from A to B. Well, you can't actually do that. You never could. You really do have to figure things out carefully. Otherwise, you're going to end up with something which try to bring to market and it's got huge flaws in it, or openings for other people to actually say, well, thank you for bringing it to market, we can do a better one.
Yeah.
So you've got to be patient.
So Andrew, let's discuss the Cork Right tool. So you come up with this plastic gadget to make the process of corking easier and cleaner.
Yes.
But then you must have had this kind of moment of what do I do now? What do I do with this, right?
Yeah. Well, actually, that was one of those instances where I saw people. Actually, I was working on Granville Island at the time, and we were putting aluminum shop fronts, just big frames, into steel frameworks. So they're about 3.5 meters by 2.5 meters. These rectangles, and you'd bolt them in, and then after you've bolted them in, you take a very large corking gun and squirt this cork in there, and then you take your finger, lick it, and run it down and wipe it on your jeans.
Well, what's wrong with that?
Exactly. And you might have 200 of these things to do. And I was just looking at it, and I just could not believe that was the way it was being done. So I also, at the same time, I was renovating a very well beaten down old property in East Van. And I had to put 2 bathrooms, a basement suite bathroom, and 2 kitchens in, and I knew I had a lot of caulking to do. So I started trying out various ways of forming a tool to actually spread that caulk correctly, and also to collect it and everything else, so it wasn't a mess. And eventually I came up with what I came up with. But again, it was through a long trial and error. I remember sitting for 3 hours talking to a very time-generous gentleman in Richmond. I was intending to make it out of steel rather than out of plastic originally. And he eventually persuaded me, although he was a steel manufacturer, to do it in plastic. So it takes a lot of time, and it really does help if you can speak to a lot of other people who've got skills in areas where you don't have.
Well, and it's one thing to create the idea, but as you said, to then get it to market is a whole other aspect.
Yes.
And that must have been difficult for you to go, okay, I've got this tool created, what do I do with it now, and how do I sell it?
That's right. Well, in fact, I had the tool created, and I had 3,000 of them sitting in our basement. So I'd gone the next step without actually, beginning to think really about how they're going to market it. At the time, there was a trade show, the Western Canada Trade Show, which happened at BC Place. And we were very fortunate in that we got a last-minute booth there, which is just an 8x4 space on the floor. At the time, they did a Meet the Buyers morning where you met the buyers for some major corporation, and it was Revelstokers was then, Revi now, Rona now, sorry, and 3 others. And within the course of that morning, we'd sold many more tools than we actually had. So then it became a bit of a panic. We were one of those very fortunate companies that actually seemed to have hit on a product that was very much needed. And I put it down primarily to the marketing director, who's my wife, who knows how to get hold of things like special kind of deals for trade shows, simply because she's willing to ask, and ask politely. So we got that, and after that, really, there was no stopping us. We then did a similar thing at the national show, and then a year later, we brought out the next tool, which won the best product prize at the national show. So,
and tell us about that tool, Andrew.
Well, that's the removal tool. So the finishing tool is a 2-part tool with a flexible rubber end to it, and basically a handle to hold it in place. The removal tool is a 100% plastic tool, but it's a very specialized plastic, and basically just cuts and gouges the old cork out. And I came up with that, not because I wanted to do it, because I felt that most people put it in rather than take it out, but because the buyers wanted it. In fact, I remember a conversation with the Rona buyer, as would be now, in Surrey, and she basically said, look, this is what we want you to do. So that was very quick to do, did it very, very speedily. And in fact, we're still sending out photographs of it, which are of my original model, before we had it made, because we had to model it, photograph it, create the packaging before we had actually made anything as far as the production run's concerned. So it was a very speedy affair. And as I say, that won the Best New Product at the National Hardware Show. I couldn't even tell you when. I think it's way back in the 90s, probably 98, something like that.
That's great, a true success story. You know, Andrew, the success of those two kind of tools, how did that change your life or your career? Like, you know, what was the kind of highlight of all that?
Well, I think it was the first tool that changed things. I was still working when I was bringing that forward, and I worked for probably 18 months while we were bringing that forward. Fortunately, I had a fairly flexible workload, so I could, in fact, fly away of a Friday evening, red-eye to Toronto. All the buyers were in Toronto for me, do a show or meet a buyer, then come back Monday. So I'd take Monday off, and then I'd just fill in the rest of the week in order to catch up. But when I was being asked to do the second tool, I realized that the first tool is successful. The second tool was going to take some time, and if we had two tools going out at the rate that the first tool went out at, I wasn't going to be able to continue to work at the same time. So at that stage, that's when I stopped full-time employment, which is wonderful, and I could concentrate on inventions, and that's been the case ever since. I now work for myself, for ourselves. I'm actually sitting in my basement workshop right now, and just before you rang, I was working on a milling machine, which is like a lathe but vertical, and working on another product. So this is what my life's about.
Is it pressure? Is it like an artist trying to create the next great masterwork, though?
I suppose I'm not an artist, so I can't say. My background's architectural, so it's definitely very much like an architect. But the difference being is I do the drawings, and then I have to make the things I want. I also get all the people to make various parts, of course, because it's quicker and they're much better than I am. But there's in the rough stages, like in terms of an artist, say a sculpture, they would make a maquette, a small scale model before they decide to cut into a huge lump of stone, and that's probably very similar, but I've never done that.
Can you just kind of tease us with what's next? What's your secret?
Well, the one I'm working on is my first electrically powered unit, so it's going to be a while yet, and it's just it's a drilling type accessory thing, but that's just this one. What I realised, I've got two 4-inch binders of products, and I'm trying to set them into families of product. So I've done a caulking family, which includes the removal tool, finishing tool. I've also done grouting tools for removal and finishing and so on. And now I'm into power tool accessories, and then I'll go on to the next thing. So it's... I'm having fun, as you might be able to tell. I don't know whether any of these are actually going to come to market. I do check before I put hours of work into it that there's no patents there that I'll be contravening or that will stop me patenting myself. But marketing's different. It doesn't have to be a good idea. It doesn't have to be a new idea. It just has to be well marketed, and that becomes the sticking point. So it might never get to market, I'm afraid. With the best will in the world, it may not.
So, Andrew, do you have any kids, or do you just have like tools for offsprings? Yeah.
Sorry,
Andrew. Before I let you go, I know I recognise obviously an English accent. Where are you from back home? Before I let you go, I'm just curious.
I was actually born in Nottingham,
okay,
Hood country, but I came across from Manchester. Manchester's my home. So.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, all good things come from England. So, thanks, Andrew. We've been speaking with Andrew Dubry, an inventor of tools, and you can find out more about his fantastic creations at vancouvertool.com.
And we have come to the end of another Renovate and Build. Thanks for listening. Next week, we are going to be focusing on communication and how good communication makes construction and development so much more efficient for the consumer, you at home, as well as for the industry professionals. And there's some really good developments out there now to change the old ways. In fact, we're going to be speaking with one software developer who has a new construction app that is making a big difference to the job sites. SiteMax's James Faulkner will be joining us to talk about his company's progress. And on Product Face-Off, we'll delve into the latest in intercoms.
And we'll be speaking about a very hot topic of affordable housing with Vancouver's Chief Housing Officer, Mukhtar Latif. Great information continues next with Tom Lucas and Sherry Brown on Radio Real Estate, right here on CL 650. See you next Saturday.
Introducing a revolutionary new construction system. This is Renovate and Build with Jim and Sandra.